Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar called Leveraging AP Automation Native to the JDE with ScanMan. My name is Stuart Manley. I'll be your moderator today. I'm a Senior Account Executive with Team Kane, and today I will be joined by Joost Engel and Richard van de Spoort from Forza Consulting, who will be walking you through a demonstration of ScanMan. As I mentioned, your team today is myself, Stuart Manley, Senior Account Executive Moderator, Richard van de Spoort, if I pronounced it right, Richard. He's a ScanMan Product Manager, and Joost Engel is the Account Manager. Okay, I'm just going to walk you through the agenda. We're going to give you the big picture of ScanMan and AP automation, talk about OCR scanning and recognition. Richard will walk us through a live solution demo and focus on number one, invoice recognition, then invoice processing, coding, two, three-way matching, approval and routing, and mobile approvals. And then we'll go into the five-step implementation.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to hand this over now to Joost Engel to talk about the big picture. Go ahead, Joost.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, what we're going to do is take a look at our ScanMan solution. So we're going to walk you through a slide deck for a couple of minutes, and then we'll switch over to Richard for the live solution demo. So first off, ScanMan, the big picture. What is ScanMan and how does it work? So typically the implementation of an AP automation solution for JDE Edwards involves a lengthy and complex project. Because within the traditional approach, a great deal of time is spent on developing and customizing integrations to synchronize data between your JDE Edwards environment and your accounts payable solution. And what happens is that you often end up with synchronizing data, duplication of functionality, because within JDE Edwards EnterpriseOne, you already have this functionality available to you. So ScanMan has a completely different approach to AP automation, which is why we typically say that ScanMan makes AP automation easy. What ScanMan does is it fully leverages the technology and functionality that you already have available in EnterpriseOne. So ScanMan is completely embedded within your EnterpriseOne system, delivering a native JDE Edwards AP automation solution. It's also a template-free solution, which allows us to deploy ScanMan across virtually any industry, as it allows us to process any and all invoice formats and layouts. So we'll talk about that later on during the session on how the OCR engine works. But basically this means that our current ScanMan customers are found in real estate, banking, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, professional services, and wholesale and distribution. So pretty much any field in which you'll come across JDE Edwards. As ScanMan customers are found in every industry, they're also found all over the world. So current customers are mainly based in the United States and Canada, but we also have some customers in South Africa, China, Australia, and Europe. And by this time we're supporting a little over 200 clients globally through our support organization. And what's good to know is that no matter how you do it today, whether it's paper or partially electronically, what ScanMan does, it can fully automate and optimize your AP processing or process, helping you to improve your efficiency. So whether you're looking to increase efficiency through automating the invoice data entry in JDE Edwards, or maybe reducing the invoice cycle times through electronic approval routing, or even increasing the early payment discounts and preventing late payment fees, or just enhancing your process visibility, control and auditability, and enhance process accuracy, ScanMan will deliver all these generic AP automation benefits. And in addition to these generic AP automation benefits, ScanMan adds its own unique set of benefits to the JDE Edwards community. So with ScanMan you benefit from an out-of-the-box integration, which directly bolts the OCR engine to your JDE Edwards system. So this is completely plug and play, no customization, no development needed. And what's good to know is that this is an Oracle validated integration on both release 9.1 and 9.2. What we're doing is maintaining your IT controllability. ScanMan does not add third-party technology or applications or any integrations to your system. It's completely built within the JDE Edwards toolset, which means that we're keeping your IT at the same complexity as it is today. And while we're doing so, we're also delivering a truly integrated processing by using one single system, which is your EnterpriseOne solution. We're delivering one single source of truth. We have direct access to master data for purchase orders, address book, supplier ledger lookups. And we also deliver real-time invoice processing in EnterpriseOne. No batch processing and no maintenance fees on any interfaces. In addition, your users benefit from the familiar user interface and also of the familiar way of working with JDE Edwards. And finally, there's no additional Oracle licenses required. So what we're doing is delivering the most cost-effective AP automation solution specifically tailored to JDE Edwards EnterpriseOne. So taking a look at the ScanMan AP process. On the left side of your screen, we see supplier invoices coming into your organization. Typically these are hard copy invoices coming in by mail or fax, or more or less your paper invoices. But we also see your PDF invoices coming in by email, and for some customers we also see them receiving XML invoices, which are electronically formatted invoices coming in by sometimes EDI. So what happens with these different invoices? Hard copy or paper invoices are scanned using a scanner device and then storing the scanned image on either a network directory or maybe even sending it directly to an email address. In example, customer@scanman.com. ScanMan will automatically collect the email attachments from this email folder and will also collect the invoices from the network directory. After collection, these will be passed through the OCR engine, which is where we convert your invoices into electronic JDE Edwards data. Automatically, the JDE Edwards entry fields are pre-populated with the corresponding invoice data. And once in JDE Edwards, your invoice will never leave the system again. Invoice verification, coding, matching, approval workflows, reporting, it's all done directly in E1. And as all activities are performed in JDE Edwards, standard E1 security applies, and automatically an extensive audit trail on your invoice processing is generated. So to answer the question, what is ScanMan? Everything you see in the red box. So as said, ScanMan has been fully built within the Oracle JDE Edwards toolset. So what building blocks did we use? We used the JDE Edwards Business Services integration, which we used to bolt the world's best OCR engine directly to EnterpriseOne. We're also using the JDE Edwards log voucher principles to distribute the invoice amount to a suspense account, allowing you to review and distribute the invoice to the correct GL account at a later stage. We're also using the JDE Edwards workflow, which typically only supports purchase order documents, but this has been enhanced by Forza Consulting to also support invoice documents. This is done within our own product code, so this will not affect your JDE Edwards upgrade projects in the future. We are also using the chart of authority, which is used to route invoices for approval to the correct budget holder with the right clearance. Finally, we're using the voucher match application, which has been enhanced to deliver a more comprehensive manual matching process for those customers who are on applications release 9.0. And of course, as of 9.1, the auto matching functionality is available. We're also using some other techniques delivered by Oracle, which are CAFE1, E1 pages, and the watchlist functionality. And this is to deliver the most compelling user interface, which you'll see during the live demo. So from a functional or process perspective, we're now looking at the AP dashboard, which provides the user with their specific process flow displayed on an E1 page. So keep in mind that the presented flow is just an example, and once implemented, this page will show your specific process flow. From the AP dashboard, the user has direct access to process activities that they are responsible for. So roles can be defined, meaning other users may not see all the process steps on your screen right now. Starting off, the Scanman Workbench is a Scanman Workbench is a CafeOne application which shows both the captured invoice data in the JDE Edwards entry fields and a picture of the actual invoice. This allows the AP to verify that the data that's been collected has been collected correctly, but will also allow them to change and overwrite any data when necessary. Other access points include the JDE Edwards voucher match application for invoices that relate to a purchase order, and of course for cost invoices, we're routing the invoice through your organization, which is shown on the bottom side of the screen. And for this, we can utilize pretty much, or we can support pretty much any process flow within any organization. At the bottom of the screen, you can see some predefined KPIs. What's good to know is that we're storing all invoice data within one single JDE Edwards table, which means that we're able to run pretty much any report that you would like to see. Predefined reports in this example include a list with all the invoices with approver issues on them. We also have a report on invoices that are at a certain budget holder for too long and which may be due, so this will enable you to send workflow reminders. And we also have a report on all invoices. Alright, Scanman utilizes one of the most powerful, or even the most powerful OCR engine on the market today, called ABBY. And this OCR engine is capable of reading all fields on your invoices, ranging from header information to line items and from printed text to handwriting and barcodes. Forza Consulting has added a unique touch to the OCR engine by developing an invoice reference library. And this is a database which contains a variety of invoice reference fields found on your invoices. So rather than maintaining a template per supplier where you indicate where to find specific invoice data, Scanman automatically recognizes reference keywords no matter what their location is on an invoice. And once the keyword has been identified, in this example invoice number, which is marked on, in red on this invoice, the solution knows that there's like a 90% probability to find the actual invoice number to the right of the keyword. And if the OCR engine does not find a actual number to the right of the keyword, there's logic incorporated that will tell that the next most probable location to retrieve the invoice number from is below the invoice keyword. Although multiple languages and varieties of keywords are in the database, it may occur that an invoice reference is not included. So what we have done is deliver a solution which will allow you to add invoice keywords directly from JDE Edwards. And this will help you to maximize recognition results by adding your specific invoice tags to the reference library. And once you've added the keyword, from that point on, it will be automatically recognized in the future, allowing your invoices to be processed completely automatically. Recognizing your supplier is a vital part of the processing of your invoices. And as we are in JDE Edwards, we can use multiple invoice tags to retrieve the supplier information directly from the supplier ledger in JDE Edwards or from your address book. And for this we can use the supplier name, tax ID number, email address, web address, pretty much any unique reference which is stored in your JDE Edwards database and is mentioned on your supplier's invoice. So, time for a demo, and let's have a look at what this looks like in the system. So what we'll do is we'll process a non-PO or a cost invoice, in which we'll include approval routing, and we'll also process a PO-based invoice, and we'll show you the automated matching options. For the approval routing, we differentiate between three different JDE Edwards users. So there's three different ways in which an invoice can be approved. Of course, this can be done directly from JDE Edwards for those users who are frequently or constantly working in JDE Edwards. There's also your more incidental users who are licensed for JDE Edwards but don't use it every day. These users are sent or notified by receiving an email notification that there's invoices for them to be approved. And maybe there's also people in your organization that are never working in JDE Edwards but do need to approve invoices. And specifically for that group of users, we've designed the ScanMan mobile application, which will allow you to approve invoices from any mobile device without needing any JDE Edwards licenses. So I'll give the floor to Richard, who will take over for the live demo.
Thank you, Joost. Okay, so for this part of the demo, obviously I will go into JDE Edwards. I will log in as a AP administrator, and this is a role without any security, which means that I can do anything. I can see everything within the process, which typically is not the case in real life. When I log in, I will see several pages on top, and by the pages we demonstrate you that we can have several different processes. So off the shelf we have 15, 16 processes that we can configure around the invoice automation process, and we visualize that by creating different E1 pages. For today, what I will do, I will process an invoice without a purchase order and an invoice with a purchase order, and the one without a purchase order I will push through a approval process. So what typically happens, and Joost explained that already, is that your supplier sends emails to a designated email box like invoice@forzaconsulting.eu, and then automatically we will pick up invoices from there. If we scan invoices, we can scan them to a network location or several network locations, and all those invoices that we receive or that we capture and scan, they end up in the so-called ScanMan workbench. That's what you see here. That's actually the heart of our ScanMan solution. In this solution, we will show you the invoices that have been recognized by the OCR engine and that need to be verified. After that, a specific workflow will be initiated, and in this example, what I will do, I will send out a approval notification to an individual in the organization that needs to approve the invoice. After that, it goes to a second approval in the organization because the amount is too high for one person, and after that the invoice will be approved. I will open the ScanMan workbench, and as said, this is a so-called Cafe One application with a lot of information visible here. But as said, I'm doing this presentation as a super user, so I see everything. Obviously, based on security, based on roles, based on processes, we can show you more or less on the screen. So what do we see? In general, three portions. On the right-hand side, and that's this section here, we see the image viewer. This is a multi-page image viewer, so you can see one or multiple pages that you have received from your supplier, of invoice from your supplier. It's really easy to detach it. Oh, this is making it only smaller, sorry. It's really easy to detach it, like this. And the convenience of this is that you can put it on a secondary screen. For example, a second screen next to your workstation. Not for today. I'll go back here. I will leave it on the screen. In the middle section, you see a work list. And this work list gives you all the invoices that you have received, that you have processed, that are in a workflow, and so forth and so on. So based on the role and based on the activity and based on the workflow step, you will see or you will not see the invoice that you are looking for in this list. As said, I'm a user who can do everything, so I see everything. This is a multi-threaded list. This means that several persons can work on the same list at the same time. And on this side of the section or the screen, we see a section in which we show you the information that we have captured from the invoice. So let me zoom in a bit. So what do we do? We are looking for reference words on an invoice. So for example, I'm searching for the invoice date, I'm searching for the invoice number, I'm searching for order number on an invoice. And what we do, we use the keyword concept as Joost has explained. We find the invoice date. And then we are going to look on the right hand side. For example, here we see a date. And this date is pushed into the process. I'll zoom in a bit here for you. And what you see is that we have information that we have captured from the invoice on the same screen. On this side you see the so-called import values, and import values are the values that we recognize from the invoice. For example, the invoice date is the 9th of March 2017, and we capture that in here. Then we see a value to process, and the process value means the value in how we are going to push it to JDE. And in this case we have to format that with a / because the date settings in JDE Edwards are like that. Why is this important? Because not on the invoice we will not always see the invoice date as we would like to see it inside JDE. For example, we could also have received an invoice saying March 9th 2017, and we need to translate that. So if you look in the middle box here, the process value, that are exactly the same values as that we need to enter in the standard JDE Edwards application, such as the PO411, the voucher entry application. What do I see more? I see the invoice number, which I have captured, which I see here, but also the company ID. A company ID is a field that you need to enter into JDE Edwards, otherwise you cannot enter an invoice or create a voucher. But unfortunately your suppliers will not put on the invoice the company number as that you have created in JDE Edwards, but they will put, for example, a name of the company, your name. So in this case it's Forza Consulting BV. So as Joost already explained, we have a very powerful OCR engine, so we are very capable of finding all types and all kinds of fields on the invoice. So what we did, we created a cross-reference which is capable of finding legal entity names such as Forza Consulting BV, which is our Dutch entity, but we also have Forza Consulting Bulgaria, our Bulgarian entity, and in Belgium we have an entity. And it's really easy to search for that information on an invoice and cross-reference it to the correct company number that you would like to see. Is it needed or only possible with the legal entity name? No, it's not. We can use anything we see on the invoice as long as it's unique. For example, our address, maybe our postal code in combination with our city that we are in, and so forth and so on. We were also able to find the supplier number. The supplier number 308232 is the address book number that we see inside JDE Edwards. But of course this is also not visible on the invoice. We use another unique reference. In this case I use a supplier tax ID, and that tax ID I can find somewhere at the bottom of this specific invoice, and we see it here. But we can use everything we want, from a VAT number, Chamber of Commerce number, address, email address, phone number, normal address, even the name, the pizza factory, whatever you want. If it's on the invoice, we can use it to cross-reference it. So if you look in the middle, as said, this is the work list, and depending on the role that you perform in the organization, you have to take action. So the first step that you need to take is validate if the OCR engine did its work correctly, and we call that the verification step. So what I can do is customize or configure the system in such a way that I only see the invoices that need to be verified. This means that I can work my way through the list, searching for the invoices that are important for me or are important for my process step that I need to perform in the organization. If you look at the list, we have several processes. The processes are both part of ScanMan, such as approved or bypassed or error, but they can also be user defined and defined by our users and our ScanMan clients. For example, site admin pre-approval, which is a specific step that we can add to facilitate specific business processes. So let me play the role of a verification person in the organization. So I see a lot of invoices. I see green boxes, they are okay, red is in an error, this is a locked one, someone is working on it. But I can pick this one with a plus. And what we will see is that we will show you where it's coming from. So before this session, I sent an email to scammandev@gmail.com. I did send it, and I had a topic like Team Kane webinar Scamman in there. So I can see where it's coming from. All the information, of course, for this demo is captured correctly from the invoice. And I see also some stuff that's coming over from the address book, such as the supplier has a default expense account. As said, we can configure everything you want from a JDE point of view. We see also some header fields, and typically header fields, we need to use them to push and to process an invoice in JDE. For example, a GL date or a tax date, or maybe specific payment terms, or maybe we have some logic behind the business unit. We can all show that, and we can all push information in there. We can do that by capturing it from the invoice, or we use it based on logic. For example, the GL date, we just tell the system that use the date of today. But we could also have said use the invoice date or any other date. Here we see amount information being populated. And this is a invoice with multiple tax or multiple VAT lines, so I see more lines. We can have up until 5 different tax lines on one invoice. Up until now, that is more than enough. And going down, we have more information that's related to the purchase order. So what does a verification person need to do? First of all, as said, this is a multi-threaded list. So I need to reserve this invoice. I do that by clicking this button here. And then automatically, JDE is performing, or Scamman is performing, the same kind of validations as that would be performed if you enter an invoice manually into the PO411, which is the standard application in which you enter a voucher. If you go to the top, regular JDE users will recognize messages like this: duplicate supplier invoice number. This is a message that comes from the standard JDE master business function, which we have configured in this scenario to give us a warning. We could also have given an error, but because I do this demo quite often, it's a short demo if I would not be able to push this invoice through. So I leave it like that. All the information, it's coming from the standard JDE database. For example, if the company number is incorrectly fetched, we have the visual assist. We go into the search and select forms for selecting the companies, and we just select it. Going down, I have to validate the line information. So in this case, I will zoom in a bit. I have multiple lines with amounts and a total amount here. As said, we are doing exactly the same as in JDE, so we do all kinds of validations. And we can show you those validations by, for example, calculating the gross value per line. Typically on an invoice which has multiple tax rates or VAT rates, you don't see the total gross value per VAT line, you only see one total. So we help the users by giving them the option to calculate those amounts. And automatically what you will see is that the amounts are being calculated here. By doing that, I can push the invoice through and process it further into the system. So I will do this one more time just to show you how quick a verification could be. So I discard the changes, press OK, and I perform the verification step. So I go in here, I do edit data, I see something yellow, fine with me. I validate the fields, I validate the amounts. I don't see a gross value because that was not on. I calculate it, and that's it. What you also have to understand is that we have a pretty comprehensive audit trail. So if someone is changing something in this process, for example, I make 201 out of this, then the field becomes red. This means that we keep track of everything that's changing. So in this case, I'm not doing that. I'm going into the happy flow. And by going into the happy flow here, this means that I'm going immediately into the GL coding scenario. A GL coding scenario is a scenario in which I'm going to send an email message to a individual in the organization, such as a project manager or budget owner, head of department, and he or she needs to code this invoice. This is a non-purchase order related invoice, so someone needs to code the invoice before it can go into an approval. I have a few scenarios for that, but I keep the simple one. Due to demo purposes, I play immediately the role of the one that does the GL coding. So immediately after this, I get a screen in which I can do the coding. This means that if you want, you can also let the AP department or the verification individual, you can let him or her do the coding. It's all up to you and all up to us how to configure that. So I press Save and Process Voucher. What will happen right now is that an email message will be sent out to someone in the organization, like me, or it gives me immediately the screen as we see here. And this is a application in which the project manager, head of a department, budget owner, or the AP department can code the invoice. As said, this invoice has a default expense account, so that one is pre-populated here. The total amount that we need to redistribute is 53.23, and I can code that to one line or to several lines. 23. If I move down, I see here that an approval route code is being selected. So based on the information that I see on this screen, automatically the approval hierarchy has been selected. In this case, the approval hierarchy is workflow number 1. Why did I pick workflow number 1? Because I'm also part of that workflow, so I will receive the first message, and after that Joost Engel will receive a message. How did we select workflow 1? That's something that we discuss with you and that we configure together. For example, that can be based on the company, on the supplier, on the business unit, on the account number, on the subledger, on the asset number, all those kind of fields that you would like us to see as a trigger for the process. By pressing OK, right now, immediately the approval hierarchy and the approval workflow will be initiated. Because I'm still at the verification step, I will just go back into the Scam and Workbench and I can select the next invoice that I need to process. So I press OK. We see green things appearing here. This means that it is good and that the workflow process, so the vouchers processed and the workflow is started. We have a few options here. We can say the voucher should be created immediately after the coding in JDE so that a voucher is created. In this scenario I have chosen to do so, or it can be done at the end of the process as soon as the invoice has been approved. It can be a locked voucher, which is a preliminary voucher. You tell us, we make it and we configure it. So as said, this voucher is now already in JDE. So if I do view voucher, I will see that this voucher is created. The status obviously is on hold because it needs to go to an approval workflow. The invoice is just a regular invoices that we are used to seeing in JDE. But what we also see is a paperclip at the beginning, and this is an attachment. And the attachment is the same document as that it has been emailed to me or to us, to the Scanman or the invoice@fortuneconsulting.eu email box, for example, or the document as how it has been scanned. What we also have, that's very convenient, is a button on the right hand side, and that's here. This is also a picture of the invoice, but this is not only an attachment. This is a generic viewer, which means that you can call for this application wherever you are in JDE. For example, if you are at the account ledger inquiry and you want to see of which invoices a certain balance has been by which invoice a certain balance has been created, then you just press that button and the invoice appears. How are we able to do that? Because we use the unique key that's available on a lot of financial screens, which is the document number, document type, document company. So wherever this combination is, we can call for that picture. Also in the payment process, for example. As I told you, this invoice is now in a approval flow, and I also have a button here. Why is it convenient to have that button there? Because if you are looking through your supplier ledger inquiry, for example, you can see where the invoice is in the process. We have a specific administrative panels or screens where we can follow the process, but it's also possible to show it directly here. So what you will see is that the person responsible, Richard, that's me, is in the pending status or the processing status, and I need to approve all invoices from $1 till $50 US. Joost Engel, my manager, for example, he is waiting because he is waiting for me to approve it, and then he is the one that approves everything above $50 US in this scenario. So I've received an email message, but I can also go to the mobile application to approve the invoice. Which will I do first? So I will log out here, sign out, and I will go to the mobile application. Okay, it's here. This is an Android emulator because that's easy and convenient for me to demo on. In the in the Google Play Store, you see our application, which you can download and configure if you have the privileges, obviously. And if you go in, you will see something like this. I will enlarge it, and you see that you have to log in with a email address and with a password. By doing that, you go in JDE. Why am I saying we are going into JDE? Because you see here, I hope, stuff that you recognize like DV 910, production test environment. So I will just go in here. As said, this is my test environment, my demo environment. Typically, we skip this this step. And what we will see then is the possibility to have a look on all the invoices that are waiting for me to be approved. So in this case, I see a few invoices, and red means that they are overdue. And this one is the latest one that I've entered, and it's an invoice for 53.23 euro. I said US dollars, but it is a euro invoice. If I click it, I can have a look at the invoice details by clicking here. Then I will see a picture and more additional details, which I will show you in the next part of the approval process. But I can also just say okay or not okay. I will do a happy flow, so I will say this one is fine, press OK. We can configure users to or the system to enter approval reasons, like the pizza was nice. This we can make mandatory or not. Okay. So now what happens? This invoice goes into the queue again, and Joost Engel will receive a message. And by receiving that message, here's the next one that needs to approve the invoice in this process. Because I play the role as Joost Engel as well, I receive his email in my email box, and I will show. It's here. I open it. So we can have an approval via a mobile app, we can have an approval via an email notification, and we can have a, and I will not show you that, we can have also a cloud application where you can log in. So here we see a picture of the invoice. It opens on my other screen. Come on. A picture of the invoice. A picture of the invoice. Some text which is user defined, and we can log in to JDE to approve. Joost already explained to you that you have several options to approve. This one is directly from JDE, so I will log in with his user ID, which I have stolen for a while now. Sign in, and then I will see the same as I showed you in the mobile application, but then in a JDE screen. We have really made sure that we created a screen that will be able to be used by anyone, even a non-regular JDE user. For example, the only thing we have to explain to him, there are 3 buttons that you need to press. If you approve, press the approve button. If you reject, press the reject button. If you have a question about the invoice, press the question button. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. There's one additional feature here on hold. This means that you can tell your AP department, who is monitoring the process, that you are working on this invoice and that there is a reason why you did not approve, reject it, or had a question about it. As said, our workflow is pretty comprehensive, so we can ask questions to people in the organization about this invoice. This is all taken account in the audit trail. We can reject, and typically we make it mandatory to fill in a rejection reason. Why is that important? Because an additional action needs to be invoked after this process. I'm doing the happy flow here, so I will just approve it. But in this case, I will also create the option to do a approval reason. It's not mandatory, but there is one nice feature, and that's called approved it for a referral. If you use that, I create an additional layer into the workflow so that another individual needs to approve before this invoice goes from status on hold to approved. But I'll keep it simple. I say approved, and I say fine with me today, with a 1 in there, and I press OK. If I would have had more invoices, I would go to my list. This was the only one that was there for Joost Engel, so I close this one. So I will just log in again as the AP administrator and have a look at this invoice. What happened? Before I show you what's going on with this invoice, I understand from my colleague that there are 2 questions. So I will pause a bit to answer those.
Okay, so the first question is, how are the different date formats handled when received in ScanMan? And where is it defined whether the invoice date should be interpreted as month, day, year, versus day, month, year?
Yeah, so we have made it very comprehensive again. We have date formats in the system, and based on the region and based on the company setup that we provide, we give you the most common, the option to select the most common date format. So for example, if we send an invoice from Europe to a US company, we switch the month and the days automatically.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question coming from Kathy. Can the invoices be stored in an Oracle Web Center content rather than attached as a media object in JDE?
Yes, we have the option to utilize the standard JDE media objects or in the media object queue. We can attach them via a URL to a network location, or we can attach them via URL to any other document management system that's available. We just need to add the link.
Okay, thank you. In case of any other questions, feel free to use the question panel and submit your questions.
Okay, so going back to this invoice, I will show you the comprehensive audit trail that we have available around what has happened to this invoice. We are talking about the top invoice here. I processed it at a 8:45 Dutch or European time. If I move to the right, I see information related to this invoice from an audit trail point of view. So it's processed, who touched it, when did we touch it, who was the last one who touched it, which was Joost Engel, the supplier, the document number, it's there. Move a little bit more to the right. When was it uploaded, via which email address did we receive it, and so forth and so on. So that's one way. If I move down, I see also something else. That's an audit trail related to the process. So when did we receive this invoice? At 7 minutes before half past 7, sorry. Then it took 1 hour and 7 minutes before the AP admin started to edit the data. That was me in this demo. Then I discarded the edit, then I edited again, then I put it in a workflow, then I see that the workflow is processed and when the workflow was approved. Also how much time was taken into account for all these steps, and the texts and the fields that were added to the process. So if you go back to the invoice itself, view voucher, we will see that the invoice is now approved for payment because we have followed the workflow. And down here you will see that the voucher approval status summary gives me the information that Richard approved the invoice, Joost approved the invoice, when it was approved, with the comments that we had. Okay. I'll quickly show you a invoice with line items. I will take 3 more minutes of your time. If we go in here, we see an invoice, and I will zoom in again, which has line items. In here, and these line items, they are picked up, processed, and pushed through Scanman and standard JDE. How were we able to do that, and how were we able to perform such a process? By capturing the purchase order number that we find on the invoice and by capturing the line items associated with the invoice. If you do that, then without any manual intervention, you can push this invoice through, as long as it is part of the so-called approval tolerances, or the approval tolerances. So if an invoice does equal, the receipt does equal the purchase order with a certain tolerance, then this invoice is automatically matched. This is done by standard JDE functionality, which is called voucher match automation, and it's a batch or a UBE that you can schedule and that can try to match that invoice on a regular basis. So if you look at this invoice after it has been processed, you see here a green box moving to the right. All the information related to this invoice is already there again. And this is being done by, and I will show you here, by a batch that we have run as preparation to this demo. I will open it. So typically this is something that you schedule, and because it's a job that you schedule, we typically show you a lot of information on there. For example, the selection criteria, but also the lines that we have selected, but more important, the processing options that we are using. During this demo, the time is too short to show you all the details related to this process, but it's a standard JDE report, meaning that you can do a proof and final run. but also, and that's quite convenient, a suggest mode. This means that JDE will show you how JDE thinks he should match the invoice. By doing so, we give you the opportunity to add a workflow status, meaning approve the suggestion, so that you can add a manual intervention if you want. You can flag that per supplier. We have some additional criteria, such as the maximum or minimum of the maximum amounts that you need to have into the process. For example, I only want to automatically match invoices that have an amount less than $10,000 possible, and we set automation rules per supplier or per process. For example, as said, we can do it with partial receipt, without partial receipt, with tolerances, without tolerances, with specific tolerances such as rounding tolerance, and so forth and so on. If you do that, then automatically JDE will do the following for you. It will select the order number 12206. It will search for the receipt document. It will create a voucher for you, in this case PV29074. It will tell you the match is successful. Behind this there is also a pretty comprehensive exception handling process, and this gives you the opportunity to match invoices without entering a manual activity, entering manual action, and making sure that you make this process more efficient. Okay, so I will. This concludes my my part of the demo. Are there any specific questions still open?
Hi, Richard. I don't have any additional questions at this time, so we have 5 minutes left. So yeah, if there are any more questions that you have now, please feel free to send them, and we'll be happy to answer them, hopefully. Okay, Joost, would you be able to go back to the last couple of screens?
Yeah, we're switching over to the slide deck now, and it's on screen. So as a wrap-up, what we've done is gather some information on some of our customers, which are on screen now. So first off, there is Ryokan, which is Canada's largest real estate investment trust, and this is a very interesting customer for us. Why we're highlighting some of these is just to emphasize on the flexibility of the SCAMAN solution. And highlighting how it can facilitate pretty much any and all process flows, and also company sizes. And the great thing about Ryokan is that it has over 100 JDE Edwards companies within EnterpriseOne, which are all supported with one single SCAMAN installation. And they're processing over 50,000 invoices annually. Which is just to emphasize at how we can scale the solution to meet any needs. We've also touched the various languages which we can support, which is why I highlighted Datacolor International, which is located in New Jersey. And Datacolor has rolled out SCAMAN across both Europe, China, and the United States. So challenging the OCR engine with Chinese characters and multiple languages, which is all fine and works perfectly. But also multi-currency, multiple invoice layouts, so all supported within one single SCAMAN installation. Next up is Cabrini Healthcare, which is an Australian-based customer. And why we're highlighting them is because they have replaced their Transform AP solution for SCAMAN due to its deep integration into JDE Edwards and the flexibility on the OCR engine, making that we can meet requirements that their previous solution wasn't able to deliver them. And finally, there's Intergen, who's also located in or has a presence in the United States, but also in the UK. and also here in the Netherlands. What we've done for them is first implement their UK branch, working with the Great Britain pound. After that we rolled it out in the United States, and we are now focusing on implementing the Dutch branch, all from one single Scanman installation as well. So yeah, just to touch the 5-step implementation approach, which Stuart discussed in the beginning. Our first step includes a AP analysis, looking at your AP process or current process, after which we'll map it to your desired process. And after this we'll start the technical implementation, which means that we'll deliver all JDE Edwards objects and set up the solution from a technical perspective, followed by the functional implementation, which is where we configure all the workflows in accordance to what we've discussed during the AP analysis. Pretty much quickly followed by user training within your JDE Edwards test environment, and if your user acceptance training is successful, we'll migrate Scanman to production, and then it's time for your go live. So pretty straightforward, and typically a pretty fast implementation when compared to other solutions on the market. And this is where I'll hand it over to Stuart.
Thank you, Joost. Perfect timing. We're right at the 1 hour mark, and appreciate you and Richard and your presentation. Thanks so much. Quickly, just some self-serving information, of course, at the end. Who is Team Kane? We're a consulting services partner for JDE Edwards since 1995. We specialize in upgrades, migration, spot consulting, training rollouts, as well as native to JDE best-of-breed tools and solutions like Scanman, Pacman, and self-service password, other solutions that FORS provides for package build automation, self-service password resets, Swift test for easy setup to manage testing natively within E1, spreadsheet server for reports and analysis, distribution, and dashboards, as well as budget accelerator for simplifying and enhancing budgeting, and QuickBiz software for developing custom modules faster and more cost effectively. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today again. We'll stay on the line for a few more minutes if anybody has any questions since then that they'd like to ask.
Okay, I see that we have a question from Travis, who asks, can you repeat the typical timeline for the 5-step implementation? So yeah, going into this, of course this depends on the complexity of your AP department, as well as if it's a centralized AP or maybe you have multiple AP departments across various locations. Also depends on the complexity of your approval flows. But in general, you're probably looking at an implementation time from start to finish of 25 consultancy days.
Okay, Joost, thank you for that answer. Appreciate it.
All right.
It's a few minutes after. Let's see if we have any other questions. No, I don't have any additional questions at this time, so at this time we will end the webinar. Again, thanks very much for joining us, and have yourselves a great day.